students, welcome to Larchmont Elementary and to our proudly diverse town hall, the first in a series. So my name is Vicki Greco, and I, along with Rodney Jordan and Tanya Basine, welcome you all. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to let Rodney introduce our wonderful speaker for this morning.
So it's going to be my pleasure to introduce our speaker, but first I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. If you want to know what we're doing here today, we don't know. We really just wanted to begin and try to have the conversation of talking about what we have in common. You know, what do we have in common across geographic lines? What do we have in common around cross-racial lines and economic lines? And how can we work together, you know, as a community, as neighbors, as families to just make things better in our city, in our region, and in our neighborhoods? And so, as Vicki said, several of us had the opportunity to work on Norfolk Public Schools strategic plan. We're on the strategic planning committee. And this is not a Norfolk Public Schools event, so I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. But in working on that, on the mission and vision, you know, one of the things that you hear talked about a lot of times is the cornerstone of a proudly diverse community. Well, we had a diverse group of individuals, and we fought, and we argued, and we debated, and we hugged, and we had all kinds of conversations trying to figure out certain language of what we wanted to be as a community, and that was something that evolved from that. But it was a very, in my opinion, pleasant experience just getting to know people, having people from different perspectives and different backgrounds kind of come together around that statement. And so a few of us had said, maybe 2 years ago, you know, maybe what we need to try to do is form a proudly diverse caucus, just have a group of individuals who, whatever diversity meant, come together and try to have a conversation around it, see if we could work together and build around it, and then begin to impact things that happen in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and just around the city. So we decided we would come together with many things happening in Norfolk, many things happening in the region. Just last week on Facebook, the mayor of Portsmouth was commenting on Facebook about how he felt that Portsmouth needed to have a dialogue around race because of conversations that were taking place in Portsmouth. You know, in Virginia Beach, the mayor there some time ago established the various diversity roundtables and minority roundtables, again trying to focus on inclusion. And we just thought it was another opportunity for us to have that conversation here. And so we, because many of us are involved in schools and education, we thought we would start with education. And I've had the pleasure over the last 18 months or so, almost 2 years, to meet our speaker today, Dr. Mark Lindenberg. I pronounced his name about 4 or 5 different ways. But Mark is the superintendent of schools in Winchester, out in the, I guess, northwestern part of our state. And we had the pleasure of co-chairing the Virginia School Boards Association Task Force on Schools in Challenging Environments. And we presented some of our findings of this task force to the General Assembly. We had the opportunity to present at a special summit. But the conversation was really around what do we have to do to improve schools around the Commonwealth that were finding challenges with academic performance. And Mark, who prior to being at Winchester, you were Bristol City. And one of the first opportunities I had to meet Mark was they did all this data in Bristol, and he had written a op-ed piece that appeared in the Washington Post comparing some of the performance that he saw in Bristol to Fairfax and some of the more affluent parts of the states, and really did a great analysis of perceived differences, but in reality, either we were seeing some like performances wherever you were, or we were seeing some lack of performance wherever the students were. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I want to bring up Mark. As Vicki said, our idea is to have a conversation and be about education and be about collaboration first in the area of education, which you have today. We want to have future conversations around public safety, housing, economic development, and health, and really just begin to just educate ourselves around what's the information out there, what's the data to tell us, and then how we can come together to just make things better as a community. We made the chairs in the round somewhat because we wanted this to be intimate. This is not a lecture. This is an informal conversation, and when it gets warm, we hope that the next one will be in somebody's backyard. So it'll be much more intimate than what we're doing right now. Well, with that said, I'd like to bring up Dr. Mark and allow him to share with us.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I'm the son of a school teacher, so I'm not as comfortable behind a podium as I am up front. And so let's make this interactive as we can. If you have any questions, I want to be dialogue-based, I want to be instructional, I feel more comfortable teaching. And somebody said their dad was a coach. My dad was a coach. He's a high school football coach for 48 years, and my mother was an elementary school teacher for 40 years. So education has been part of the fabric of who I am. What I love about public schools is that we swing the doors open, and we open the doors up for every single child, regardless of race, color, handicap, condition, sexual orientation, proudly diverse. And I love that you are talking about being proudly diverse. And I say this in public schools today, let's have the courage to have the conversation. Courage is so important. I'm from Southwest Virginia. You hear my accent by now, so don't hold that against me. I'm really proud of where I'm from. I saw Vicki has turned out being a feminist there. My mother was from a little tiny community in Wythe County called Blacklick, Virginia, and my mother was college educated, got a master's degree, worked really hard to get where she was, but she was a feminist, like that shirt is in. So I grew up in this family where my dad was a football coach. He was unusual because he was from high poverty, grew up in high poverty, and earned his way to it, and ended up getting a master's in English from UVA. And he would read Shakespeare as football coach to us, and my mother was a feminist. So that's kind of my background of where I come from with diversity. And over the years, I've been fascinated by the conversations or lack of conversations in public schools regarding diversity, or poverty, or any of those things. And I think this, the turning point for me when I knew the conversation had to be when I went to be assistant superintendent of schools in Amherst County. Virginia, anybody know where Amherst County is? Amherst is right beside Lynchburg, and it's a really interesting place. It's a large county, a large geographic area, and there's kind of two groups of people there. There's real country white kids, and there's inner city spillover black kids from Lynchburg City. So you had this real interesting mix there. And when I got there, we had this issue that was going on. We had a young man who was signed a football scholarship to Virginia Tech, one of the best football players in the state of Virginia. His name was Peter Rose, and Peter had gotten caught in a drug sting. And there had been an undercover police officer put in the school. This is before I got there, put in the schools, and they caught Peter selling marijuana at McDonald's near Amherst Elementary. It was within 1,000 feet of the school. And anyway, they kicked him off the football team for Virginia Tech. He ended up not going to school, and he ended up just causing just an absolute mess in schools. So when I took in the superintendent, who was my best friend, he said, I know you're interested in this. Let's do a diversity council for the division. And I just jumped all over. Yes, it's wonderful. And I met a lady, an African-American lady in Charlottesville named Pinky Lyle, and Pinky and I became best friends. And there's one thing that Pinky told me, and I think is really, really important, is dialogue is action. And I think it starts with the dialogue. Dialogue is action, and you got to talk your way through it. So I was in Bristol last for 4 years, and Bristol was just one of the toughest places on earth. It's probably a lot like Norfolk. Some days we had 8% homeless, and one of our schools had as many as 13% homeless. And it was just, the coal fields. Many have been to Southwest Virginia. the coal fields were emptying, and where did they come to? They came to the city, and our housing was just deplorable. I mean, it's just tragic. And I go to to the housing authority, and to the housing authority was better than most, because it was regulated some of the other, where we had slumlording, and you go in there infested by bed bugs, and it was just tragic. We were working so hard to do so many things, and we made great progress, and really believe that, but I just was determined at that point is, you got to have the conversation. You got to talk about poverty, you got to talk about race, you got to talk about diversity. All of it's so important in public schools, and all of it has a place. Well, when I left Bristol, I came to Winchester. And in Winchester, we have a really diverse school system. We have 50% majority minority. And so that was the conversation when I was interviewing for jobs. I said, tell me what you need in your school system. They said, we got to talk about diversity. So we decided to talk about diversity. Since I've been there, I want to start by a video that we made that we celebrated our diversity, and it involves Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. It's my favorite piece of American literature. And then we took that and we did a stop and drop day in January where we talked about diversity all day long in every single classroom across our entire division. And we didn't just bring in food fair, we did privilege walks, and we did things to celebrate diversity. It's ongoing now. I like to say that it went through without controversy. That's not true. I thought it went really well, but there were some people out there that don't like that conversation, but the conversation has to be held. So I want to start by sharing, I think, one of my favorite things that I've been a part of throughout my career. This is a dream we had when I came there. We sat down as a group and we said, what can we do? And we said, we can talk about diversity. Let's talk about it and let's push it forward. And we said, well, let's get every single student in our school system involved in this. How do we get every single student in our school system involved in it? And so, okay, this is what we're going to do. So we kicked it off with the greatest speech of reconciliation of all time, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And then we take it from there to celebrate first. And then I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to talk about some of Rodney and I's work with the VSBA Challenge Schools and how issues in poverty. So but I thought this video would be a great way to kick off a celebration of diversity. And I think that's really what you're aiming for.